She vanished from my life 5 years ago without a trace, then appeared in my room at midnight, wearing the same dress from our last dance, holding a letter I never sent. The rain was hitting his apartment window like tiny fingers tapping on glass. Tom looked up from his computer screen and rubbed his tired eyes. It was almost midnight and he had been working on the same design project for hours. His neck was stiff, his back ached, and his coffee had gone cold long ago. He lived in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of an old building in the city. It wasn't much to look at. Just a bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room that he had turned into his home office. But it was his space, and after 3 years of living there, it felt like home. Tom was a graphic designer who worked from home. Most days he enjoyed the freedom of setting his own schedule and working in his pajamas if he wanted to. But tonight was different. He had a big deadline tomorrow, and the client kept asking for changes. He felt stuck and frustrated. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of rain and the soft humming of his computer. His roommate Jake worked night shifts at the local hospital, so Tom was used to being alone in the evenings. He liked the peace and quiet. It helped him focus on his work. As he reached for his mouse to make another edit to the design, he heard something that made him freeze. The front door was opening. Tom's heart skipped a beat. Jake wasn't supposed to be home until morning. Maybe he had forgotten something and come back to get it. But as Tom listened more carefully, the footsteps didn't sound like Jake's heavy work boots. These footsteps were lighter, softer, almost careful. He slowly turned his chair around to face the bedroom door. His apartment was small enough that he could see straight through to the front door from where he sat. But he couldn't see anyone yet. The footsteps stopped. Tom held his breath and listened. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe it was just the old building making strange noises like it sometimes did. But deep down he knew someone was in his apartment. Then he saw her. A woman appeared in his bedroom doorway and Tom's world seemed to stop. She had long dark hair that was slightly wet from the rain outside. Her eyes were the same deep brown eyes he remembered from years ago. She was wearing a long beige coat that reached almost to her knees. It was Lisa. Tom felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Lisa was his girlfriend from college, someone he hadn't seen or talked to in almost 5 years. They had broken up when she moved to another city for law school. It hadn't been a friendly breakup. They had said things to each other that couldn't be taken back. After she left, Tom had tried to forget about her. He deleted her number from his phone, unfriended her on social media, and packed away all the photos they had taken together. For a while it worked. He dated other people and told himself he was over her. But seeing her standing there in his doorway brought back every memory they had shared. Their first date at the small cafe near campus, the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, the long walks they used to take through the park on Sunday afternoons, the way she used to steal his hoodies and wear them to class. Tom's mouth felt dry. He wanted to say something, but no words would come out. What was she doing here? How did she know where he lived? How did she even get into the building? Lisa didn't say anything either. She just stood there looking at him with an expression he couldn't read. It wasn't anger or sadness. It was something else, something that made his chest feel tight. The silence between them grew longer and heavier. Tom could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He could smell her perfume from across the room, the same light, flowery scent she had always worn. It brought back even more memories of lazy Saturday mornings and study dates in the library. He noticed that she looked different than she had in college. Her hair was styled differently, more professional. She seemed more confident, more sure of herself. But her eyes were the same. They still had that spark that had made him fall for her in the first place. Tom finally found his voice, but it came out as barely a whisper. "Lisa?" He wasn't even sure if she heard him. She tilted her head slightly, and Tom saw the corner of her mouth turn up in the smallest hint of a smile. It was the same smile she used to give him when she had a secret or when she was planning something special. The rain continued to tap against the window, and the city lights from outside cast long shadows across his small bedroom. Everything felt surreal, like he was dreaming or watching a movie about someone else's life. Tom's mind was racing with questions. Why was she here? What did she want? Was she in some kind of trouble? Had something happened to her family? Maybe she needed help with something and he was the only person she could think of to call. But she hadn't called. She had just shown up, somehow knowing exactly where to find him. Tom realized he had no idea how she had gotten his address or how she had managed to get past the building's security door downstairs. As these thoughts swirled through his head, Lisa took a small step into his room. Her wet shoes made no sound on his hardwood floor. She was still looking at him with that mysterious expression, as if she could see right through him to all the thoughts and feelings he was trying to hide. Tom felt like a teenager again, nervous and excited and scared all at the same time. His hands were shaking slightly, and he was grateful that he was sitting down because his legs felt weak. The moment stretched on, filled with 5 years of unspoken words and unfinished conversations. Tom watched as Lisa stood perfectly still in his doorway. The silence between them was so thick he could almost touch it. His heart was beating so fast he was sure she could hear it from where she stood. He opened his mouth to speak, to ask her why she was there, but something in her expression stopped him. Lisa's eyes never left his face as she slowly raised her hands to the top button of her coat. Tom's breath caught in his throat. What was she doing? His mind went blank as he watched her fingers work on the first button, then the second, then the third. The coat was long and beige, the kind that businesswomen wore to important meetings. It looked expensive and well-made. As each button came undone, Tom felt his pulse quicken, not because of what she might be wearing underneath, but because of what this moment meant. This wasn't just someone taking off their coat because they were warm. This was something much more significant. When the last button was free, Lisa paused for just a moment. She looked directly into Tom's eyes, and he saw something there that made his chest tighten. It wasn't the anger he had expected after all these years. It wasn't sadness or regret either. It was something softer, something that reminded him of how she used to look at him when they were happy together. Then, with one smooth motion, she let the coat slip off her shoulders. It fell to the floor in a soft heap, and Tom's world tilted on its axis. Underneath the coat, Lisa was wearing a simple black dress. Not just any black dress, but the exact same one she had worn to their first formal dance in college. Tom recognized it immediately. How could he forget? It was the night they had first told each other they loved each other. The dress was sleeveless and came down to just above her knees. It was elegant, but not fancy. The kind of dress that looked good on everyone but looked perfect on her. She had paired it with simple black shoes and small silver earrings. Her hair fell in gentle waves around her shoulders, and she wore just enough makeup to highlight her natural beauty. But it was her smile that nearly knocked Tom off his chair. It started small, just a tiny curve at the corner of her mouth. Then it grew slowly, spreading across her face like sunrise over the horizon. It wasn't a happy smile or a sad smile or even a nervous smile. It was that special smile that Lisa used to give him when she had figured something out, when she had solved a problem that had been bothering her for a long time. Tom had seen that smile hundreds of times during their 2 years together. She had smiled like that when she finally understood a difficult concept in her philosophy class. She had smiled like that when she figured out how to fix her broken laptop. She had smiled like that the night she decided to apply to law school, even though it meant they might have to be apart. But he had never seen her smile quite like this before. This smile was different. It was knowing and mysterious and a little bit sad all at the same time. It was the smile of someone who had been carrying a secret for a very long time and was finally ready to share it. Tom felt like he was drowning in memories. That black dress had been his favorite. He remembered how beautiful she had looked in it at the dance, how they had slow danced to their favorite song while all their friends watched. He remembered how nervous he had been to tell her he loved her, and how her face had lit up when she said it back. He also remembered the last time he had seen that dress. It was hanging in her closet the day she packed up her things to move away. He had watched her fold it carefully into a box, along with all the other reminders of their life together. He had wanted to ask her to leave it behind, as if keeping the dress might somehow keep a part of her with him. But he hadn't said anything. He had been too proud and too hurt to admit how much it would mean to him. Now here she was, 5 years later, wearing that same dress in his bedroom like no time had passed at all. But everything had changed. They were both different people now. Tom was more confident in his work and more settled in his life. Lisa looked more mature, more professional, like someone who had achieved the success she had always dreamed of. Yet something about this moment felt exactly like old times. The way she was looking at him, the way his heart was racing, the way the rest of the world seemed to disappear when they were in the same room together. It was like they were 22 again, young and in love and full of possibilities. Tom tried to make sense of what was happening. Why had she come here? Why was she wearing that dress? What did that smile mean? Was this some kind of closure? Was she here to apologize? Was she here to say goodbye properly this time? Or was she here for something else entirely? The questions swirled around in his head like leaves in a windstorm. But Lisa didn't seem to be in any hurry to provide answers. She just stood there in his doorway, wearing that black dress and that mysterious smile, as if she had all the time in the world. The rain outside had gotten heavier, drumming against the window with more intensity. The sound filled the silence between them, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence anymore. It was the kind of silence that exists between two people who know each other so well that words aren't always necessary. Tom realized that his hands were shaking. He gripped the arms of his desk chair and tried to steady himself. Whatever was about to happen, he had a feeling that his life was about to change forever. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, though it was probably only a few minutes. Tom's mind was spinning with 1,000 questions, but every time he tried to form words, they got stuck in his throat. Lisa continued to stand there with that knowing smile, as if she was waiting for something. Finally, Tom couldn't take it anymore. He had to break the spell that seemed to have fallen over his small bedroom. He cleared his throat and tried to speak, but his voice came out rough and scratchy from not being used. "Lisa, I don't understand. What are you doing here? How did you even find me?" The words tumbled out faster than he intended, betraying just how nervous and confused he was feeling. But instead of answering him, Lisa did something that surprised him even more. She held up one finger in a gentle shushing gesture, the same way she used to do when she was trying to concentrate on something important. That small action brought back another flood of memories from their college days. Tom watched as Lisa reached into her small black purse and pulled something out. It was an envelope, old and yellowed around the edges like it had been carried around for a very long time. The paper looked soft and worn, as if it had been handled many times over the years. She held the envelope out toward him, and Tom could see his own handwriting on the front. His heart nearly stopped beating as he recognized what it was. It was a letter he had written to Lisa years ago but had never given to her. A letter that was supposed to be hidden away forever. Tom's face went pale as the memory came rushing back. It was about a week after Lisa had told him she was moving away for law school. They had been fighting a lot during those final days, both of them saying things they didn't really mean, because they were scared and hurt and didn't know how to handle what was happening to them. One night, after a particularly bad argument, Tom had gone back to his dorm room and poured his heart out onto paper. He had written everything he couldn't bring himself to say out loud. All his fears about losing her, all his regrets about the things they had fought about, and most importantly, all his feelings about how much she meant to him. The letter was 3 pages long and filled with all the words he wished he had been brave enough to speak. He had told her that he understood why she needed to leave, that he was proud of her for chasing her dreams, and that he would wait for her no matter how long it took. He had written about their future together, and all the plans he had been too scared to share. But when morning came, Tom had lost his nerve. The letter felt too honest, too vulnerable. What if she laughed at him? What if it made things worse between them? What if she felt pressured or guilty about leaving? So he had hidden it away in an old poetry book that Lisa had given him for his birthday, thinking no one would ever find it there. When Lisa moved out of her apartment a few days later, she had left some of her books behind, saying she didn't have room in her car for everything. Tom had offered to keep them safe for her, secretly hoping it meant she might come back for them someday. The poetry book with his hidden letter had been among those she left behind. Now, 5 years later, that same letter was in Lisa's hands. Tom felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment as he imagined her reading all those private thoughts and feelings he had written in his moment of desperation. "You found it," he whispered, barely able to get the words out. Lisa nodded slowly, her expression soft and understanding. For the first time since she had appeared in his doorway, she spoke. Her voice was quieter than he remembered, but it still had that warm quality that had always made him feel safe. "I went back to get my books about 3 years ago," she said. "I had finally settled into my job and my new apartment, and I realized I missed having them with me. Your old roommate still had the key and he let me pick them up." Tom remembered Jake mentioning something about Lisa stopping by, but at the time Tom had been dating someone else and had told Jake not to bring it up. He hadn't wanted to think about Lisa or be reminded of what they used to have together. I was flipping through the poetry book on the train ride home, Lisa continued, and your letter fell out. I recognized your handwriting immediately. She paused and looked down at the envelope in her hands. I probably shouldn't have read it. It was private, but I couldn't help myself. Tom felt his stomach drop. Lisa, I'm sorry. I wrote that when I was upset and not thinking clearly. I never meant for you to see it. But Lisa shook her head. Don't apologize. It was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever written to me. Her words hit Tom like a physical blow. He had spent years trying to forget about that letter, convincing himself it had been foolish and emotional. He had never imagined that Lisa might actually appreciate the honesty he had been too afraid to share. I've carried it with me ever since, Lisa said, her voice getting even quieter. I've read it hundreds of times. Whenever I had a bad day at work, whenever I felt lonely in my new city, whenever I started to doubt the choices I had made. Tom stared at her in disbelief. But you never called. You never wrote back. I thought you had forgotten all about me. Lisa's smile became sad and regretful. I wanted to. So many times I picked up the phone to call you or started writing emails that I never sent. But I was scared. Scared of what? Scared that too much time had passed. Scared that you had moved on and were happy without me. Scared that maybe what we had wasn't as special as I remembered it being. She looked up at him then, and Tom could see tears beginning to form in her eyes. But mostly I was scared that I had made the biggest mistake of my life by leaving you behind. The confession hung in the air between them like a bridge that neither of them was sure they were ready to cross. Tom felt his own eyes getting misty as he processed what she was telling him. All these years, while he had been trying to convince himself that he was better off without her, she had been carrying around his letter and thinking about him too. So why now? Tom asked. What changed? Lisa took a deep breath, as if she was gathering courage for what she was about to say next. Because I finally realized that some regrets are too big to live with forever. And because I got a job offer that would bring me back to this city, and I couldn't make that decision without seeing you first. Tom's heart skipped a beat. She might be moving back. The possibility was almost too much to hope for. Tom's mind was reeling from everything Lisa had just told him. She might be moving back to the city. She had been carrying his letter for 3 years. She had been thinking about him all this time, just like he had been thinking about her. A job offer? Tom managed to say, his voice still shaky with emotion. Here in the city? Lisa nodded and moved a little further into the room. She was still holding the worn envelope with his letter inside. There's a non-profit organization that works on environmental law cases. They offered me a position as their lead attorney. It's everything I studied for, everything I dreamed about when I was in law school. Tom felt a mixture of hope and confusion swirling in his chest. That's amazing, Lisa. You always wanted to do work that would make a real difference in the world. But I haven't accepted it yet, she said quickly. I told them I needed time to think about it. That's why I'm here. She walked over to his small window and looked out at the rain-soaked city below. The streetlights created golden circles on the wet pavement, and the whole world looked soft and blurry through the water droplets on the glass. I needed to see you first, she continued, her back still turned to him. I needed to know if there was any chance that what we had. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Tom stood up from his desk chair, his legs feeling unsteady beneath him. He wanted to go to her, to close the distance between them, but he wasn't sure if he should. There was still so much they hadn't talked about. Lisa, we need to be honest about what happened between us, Tom said softly. We can't just pretend that the last 5 years didn't happen. She turned around to face him and he could see that she had been crying. Her makeup was slightly smudged under her eyes, but somehow she looked even more beautiful than before. You're right, she said. We both said things that hurt. We both made mistakes. Tom thought back to their final weeks together. The arguments had gotten worse and worse as her departure date got closer. They had fought about everything and nothing. About whether long-distance relationships could work. About whether she was being selfish for leaving. About whether he was being unfair for asking her to stay. I was so angry at you for choosing your career over us, Tom admitted, but I was really just scared. Scared of losing you, scared of being left behind. Lisa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. And I was angry at you for not understanding why I had to go. But I was scared too. Scared that if I stayed, I would always wonder what might have been, scared that I would end up resenting you for holding me back, even though you never asked me to stay. They stood there looking at each other across his small bedroom, both of them finally saying the things they should have said 5 years ago. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable this time. It was the silence of two people who were finally being completely honest with each other. I did some things I'm not proud of after you left, Tom said quietly. I dated other people, but I always compared them to you. It wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to me either. Lisa nodded. I did the same thing. I even got engaged to someone last year. Tom felt his heart drop into his stomach. Engaged? It didn't work out, Lisa said quickly. He was a good man, a successful lawyer like me. Everyone said we were perfect for each other. But I couldn't stop thinking about you, about us, about what we had together. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. I gave him back the ring 3 months ago. I told him I wasn't ready for marriage, but the truth was that I wasn't ready to marry him. I couldn't marry someone when I was still in love with someone else. Tom's heart started beating faster again. She had said she was still in love with someone else. Did she mean him? The night I broke off the engagement, I went home and read your letter again, Lisa continued. And I realized that I had been trying to build a life that looked perfect on paper, but it didn't feel right in my heart. Nothing has felt right since I left you. Tom took a step closer to her. Lisa, are you saying what I think you're saying? She looked directly into his eyes. I'm saying that I never stopped loving you, Tom. I tried to convince myself that what we had was just a college romance, something that wasn't meant to last. But I was lying to myself. Tom felt like his chest might explode with all the emotions he was feeling. Relief, joy, fear, hope. Everything was mixed together in a way that made it hard to breathe. I never stopped loving you either, he whispered. I tried to move on, tried to convince myself that I was better off without you, but you were always there in the back of my mind. Lisa smiled through her tears. So what do we do now? Are we really going to try this again? Are we brave enough to risk getting hurt again? Tom thought about all the years they had lost, all the time they had spent apart when they could have been together. He thought about all the other relationships that had failed because neither of them could let go of what they had shared. I think we're different people now, Tom said slowly. We're older, more mature. We know what we want out of life. And what do you want? Lisa asked. Tom looked at her standing there in that black dress, holding his old letter in her hands, and he knew exactly what his answer was. I want you, he said simply. I want us. I want to try again, but do it right this time. The words hung in the air between them like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Tom had just laid his heart completely bare, and now he waited for Lisa's response. His hands were trembling slightly, and he could feel his pulse racing in his ears. Lisa's eyes filled with fresh tears, but this time they were tears of joy rather than sadness. She set the envelope with his letter down on his desk and took a step toward him. I want that too, she whispered. I want us too. Without thinking, Tom closed the distance between them. He reached out and gently touched her face, his thumb brushing away a tear from her cheek. Her skin was soft and warm, just like he remembered. For a moment, they just stood there looking at each other, both of them hardly believing this was really happening. Then Lisa smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Tom had ever seen. Not the mysterious smile from earlier, but a genuine, happy smile that reached all the way to her eyes. It was the smile he had fallen in love with all those years ago. So I guess I should call them tomorrow and accept the job, Lisa said, a laugh bubbling up in her voice. Tom grinned. I guess you should. They talked through the rest of the night, sitting together on his small couch as the rain continued to fall outside. They talked about everything they had missed in each other's lives over the past 5 years. Lisa told him about law school, about the challenging cases she had worked on, about the friends she had made and lost. Tom told her about building his design business, about the clients who had become friends, about the creative projects that had pushed him to grow as an artist. But more importantly, they talked about their mistakes and what they had learned from them. They talked about how they had both been too young and too scared to handle their relationship with the maturity it deserved. They talked about how they wanted things to be different this time. I don't want to rush into anything, Lisa said as the first hints of sunrise began to appear outside his window. We've both changed so much. I want to get to know who you are now, and I want you to get to know who I've become. Tom nodded. I agree. We should take this slow. Do it right this time. Over the following months, they did exactly that. Lisa accepted the job with the environmental nonprofit and moved back to the city. But instead of immediately moving in together like they might have done when they were younger, they took their time rebuilding their relationship from the ground up. They went on proper dates, something they had never really done in college when they were both broke students. Tom took her to art galleries and small concerts. Lisa introduced him to hiking trails outside the city and taught him about the legal work she was passionate about. They discovered new things about each other while also rediscovering all the reasons they had fallen in love in the first place. Tom learned that Lisa had become more confident and assertive during her time away. She spoke up for herself in ways she hadn't been able to do when she was younger. She had learned to trust her own instincts and wasn't afraid to take on challenges that seemed impossible. Lisa discovered that Tom had grown more patient and thoughtful. His work as a freelancer had taught him how to manage his time and emotions better. He had learned to communicate more clearly and wasn't as quick to get defensive when they disagreed about something. They had their first real fight about 6 months after that night in his apartment. It was about something small, where to go for dinner. But it escalated because they were both terrified of falling back into their old patterns. But instead of letting the argument destroy everything like they might have done years earlier, they took a step back and talked through what was really bothering them. "I'm scared," Lisa admitted as they sat in Tom's car outside the restaurant they had finally chosen. "I'm scared that we're going to mess this up again." "Me too," Tom said, taking her hand in his. "But being scared doesn't mean we should give up. It just means we need to be more careful with each other." That fight actually made their relationship stronger because it showed them that they could work through problems together, instead of letting them build up until everything exploded. 1 year after Lisa had appeared in his doorway wearing that black dress, Tom planned a special surprise for her. He had been working on it for months, and he was both nervous and excited about her reaction. He took her back to their old college campus for what he told her was just a nostalgic visit. They walked around the places where they had first met, first kissed, first said they loved each other. As the sun began to set, Tom led her to the old oak tree where they used to sit and study together. Under that tree, Tom got down on one knee and pulled out a simple but elegant engagement ring. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but it was perfect for Lisa. "I wrote you a letter once that I was too scared to give you," Tom said, his voice shaking with emotion. "I don't want to be too scared anymore. Lisa, will you marry me?" Lisa's eyes filled with tears as she looked down at him. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." They were married 8 months later in a small ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family. Lisa wore the same black dress she had worn that night in his apartment, the dress that had brought them back together. During their vows, Tom read parts of the letter he had written all those years ago, the letter that had somehow found its way back to him through Lisa's hands. "Some people get one chance at true love," Tom said as he looked into Lisa's eyes. "We were lucky enough to get a second chance, and I promise you that I will never take that gift for granted." As they danced to their first song as husband and wife, Lisa whispered in Tom's ear, "I kept your letter in my purse for 3 years, but now I don't need it anymore. I have the real thing." Tom smiled and held her closer. "Sometimes the best love stories are the ones that take a little time to get right. Sometimes you have to lose something precious before you can truly appreciate what you have. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, love gives you a second chance to get it right." In their new apartment, they hung a frame on the wall containing 2 things: the letter Tom had written but never given, and a photo of them dancing at their wedding. It was a reminder that love isn't just about the perfect moments. It's about being brave enough to be vulnerable, patient enough to grow together, and wise enough to learn from your mistakes. Their love story wasn't perfect, but it was real. And sometimes that's even better.